Hi, guys. Welcome to the second episode of Talk Crazy to Me. My guest today is Charlotte Caunter. Hi, Charlotte.
Hey.
I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much for doing this. It's our
I'm
first time.
so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you. It's the first time doing it virtually, so we'll see how this goes. It's our test run, so let's go for it. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to first ask how we know each other, just to kind of give everyone a little bit of a background of us. So do you want to say how we know each other?
Yeah, we did our post-grad together in mental health for kids and adolescents. And yeah, that's where I first met you.
That is where we first met. It was like a pretty small class. I feel like there was like 30 something of us in the class, I want to say, something around there. It was a great, like a big range of like ages and everything. I just remember that. But I remember you, and we kind of just stuck it out through the years and always checked in here and there. And then, and here we are.
Yeah, and here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too. I love you too. We always have such good energy together, and it always just warms my heart. So anytime I get to see your face, it's so awesome. So let's jump in. My first signature question is, Charlotte, what makes you crazy?
Yeah, that is a loaded question, first off.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
How can I sum this down in like one sentence? But I think I think this is my biggest strength. So I will say that. And I think it's because I'm constantly questioning what we've been taught. I question the systems. I question the current narratives, and I question the solutions that are being offered. I use my intuition. I draw my own conclusions. And then even with my own conclusions, I'm open to other possibilities, and then I form my own beliefs and take action. And just to kind of ground that all, I'm crazy to think that I can heal cancer naturally. So, there's
I love that. I love that. I love that so much. And I love that I got to join you on your journey when you were talking about it and learn more about that. But yeah, do you want to talk a little bit more about that, or how? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So in 2011, I was like super fit. I was working in the mental health industry. I was burning out consistently. When I wasn't working, I was working out. I was playing lots of competitive sports. So I was like super fit. Mentally and emotionally, I was going through a big breakup. I had a miscarriage. So I had a lot going on, and I didn't want to feel anything. So I threw myself into work, and I threw myself into like working out. And then I continuously burnt out until eventually I was diagnosed with cancer at 32. And I was like, how does this happen? Like I'm fit. I had abs at the time, and I'm like, how does that person get cancer? It made no sense to me. And I remember sitting down with my doctor and saying, well, what else can I do besides surgery, chemo, and radiation? And I had just taken my first holistic health coach course at the time. And, so I knew that if I had a common cold, I would do anything and everything I could to support my immune system. So here was the sickest I've ever been. And I put it in quotes because I didn't feel sick. Something was off. I didn't feel sick. And so I wanted to support my immune system. So here I'm the sickest I've ever been, and I'm going to destroy my immune system with, chemo and radiation. So it didn't make sense to me. So I said to my doctor, what else can I do? And he's like, there's nothing you can do. And I was like, well, what about diet? And he's like, diet has nothing to do with your health, Charlotte. And I was like, what?
Wow.
I know if I eat like shit, I feel like shit. If I eat well, I feel well. Like I knew it had something to do with it. And I was so happy that he said that to me at the time, because then that sent me down, a massive rabbit hole. And then I learned as much as I could about health and nutrition. And although I went against my intuition at the time, and I did surgery, chemo, and radiation, I also dove into health and nutrition. And I was like blown away by the results. Like afterwards, like I slipped and fell, and I had lymphedema on my arm, where your arm like swells up with lymphatic fluid.
Right.
And I was told I would have that for the rest of my life. And I was like, you're a world-renowned cancer hospital. There's no cures. There's no solutions. They're like, no, just go out and put a sleeve on. And within 5 days, I was able to stop the damage and completely reverse it. So I thought, I can do this with my arm. Like, what else can I do with my body?
Of course. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was told I would never have kids naturally, and I was able to have, my two little monkeys naturally as well. So that really opened my eyes. I knew that there was a lot to like unlearn and then relearn about health and cancer. During the past few years, I mean, we were all stressed out, for various reasons.
Oh my God.
Talk about crazy. Like those are crazy times for sure. Right.
Crazy.
And then, in addition to that, I was homeschooling my kids because I pulled them from school, and then my dad ended up getting diagnosed, and then eventually passed. So during all of that, my work was exploding, and I created the perfect storm for cancer to come back. Like I stopped working out. I was eating food that I don't normally eat. I was drinking alcohol. I was, stressed out to the max, not processing any of my emotions.
Right.
So I had the perfect opportunity. And then 2 weeks after my dad had passed, I found a lump again in the same breast that I had it, back in 20.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I feel like I learned so much from you, for everything that you've talked about with this, but I love that you are sort of revisiting this journey again, but doing it your way now. And like you've learned so much from what you went through and taking all of that and bringing it to what you are now. Like, I'm sorry that you have it, but you're doing the work and you're doing things that are aligned with who you are now. And I think that is a beautiful thing and such a strong message.
And this time, like you said, like I wanted to heal naturally. I wanted to heal on my terms. And plus, it's not like I'm, pulling this out of the air. I've been studying cancer since 2010.
Right. No, I learned so much from you because you opened my eyes to this world that I think a lot of people don't know about, right? So it's such a strong message to give. And I mean, really, hearing a doctor tell you that your diet has nothing to do with your health, if that's not going to make you crazy, like, I don't know what could. Like, just getting that kind of messaging, right? Because it is so much about what we put in our body for many things, right? Like,
oh yeah, like I really feel like it's holistic, right? Like it's
right.
We get sick because of toxicity and deficiency, but like, stagnant toxic thoughts, stagnant toxic emotions that we're not processing. And then of course, like, the physical toxins in our body, but even environmental toxins that we're exposed to, spiritual toxins, if we're living too much in fear and not enough in faith, all can create the perfect storm. But even when I was diagnosed this time, it was very weird. Like I had like this outer body experience, but I was just kind of like witnessing, like not judging, not anything, just like, is this really what you believe like the best way forward is? But he was like, because he was my surgeon from the back in 2011. Like, hey, you again, like I'm just getting ready to retire. And he's like, why don't we do a 2-for-1 special? And we'll do we'll do a double mastectomy this time. Like, wouldn't that be special? He's like, you could do chemo, but that would cause heart failure. But you're young, so you could probably take it. Or we could do radiation, but that would definitely cause heart failure. But this is how he's talking, like just kind of lighthearted.
Yeah, like it's normal. Yeah.
Huh, really? Oh, okay. I'm like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. you know? But there's a lot to unlearn, but you feel like you're crazy when you're going on this path because the programming runs so deep, like all the TV shows that we watch, all the movies that we watch, even if it's has nothing to do with cancer, it's like snuck in as a side character, as the mom, as a sister who gets sick, and we see them, with a head wrap or, bald, sick in the hospital and, and passing. So it's constantly programmed in us. That if we get it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And it's things that that's something that you bring awareness to that you don't really notice until someone says that to you. Right. And now it's something I will notice probably every time I'm watching it because it's so like I can just run through a bunch of things already in my head that are popping up that I'm like, oh yeah, they do throw that in there quite often.
Well, and I love using this example, but like in the latest Thor movie that came out, like his girlfriend, I mean, these are like interdimensional beings. They are superheroes, they find time and space. They've got actually the best technology in the universe, in multiverse. Right. And girlfriend dies of cancer in the hospital. It's like, it's crazy, the programming.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I want to circle back a little bit to what, and I don't know how comfortable you are talking about this, but what made you crazy working in the mental health field? What do you feel like was like, because I felt it, just to share my personal journey, I felt working in it sometimes was difficult. I found that I was more stressed out in the environment like than I should have been. And I also felt that a lot of what I was having to deal with, or like what you talked about going through burnouts, a lot of people struggle with that and go through those kind of burnout moments. And what is it that we're creating that kind of environment that makes people so anxious and stressed out? And you know what I mean? Those kind and what I had to sort of get away from in my life because it wasn't serving me anymore to be in there, even though I felt like I was doing good work at times. I felt like I was helping people. I felt like my strengths, my skills were there, but I was not mentally well in those environments. And that was, you know, I think creating some kind of a negative effect on me. So did you feel that too?
Yes. Like, I mean, when I first started working in that field, I was like, I'm going to make a difference. Like, this is where I'm meant to be. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And I did. I mean, I loved working with the kids. I loved working with the teens. And then I quickly saw some flaws in the system. Well, that's okay. I can change them. And then I realized they don't want those changed. You know,
no, I don't.
Like, and, you know, and then you dive into the history of like, you know, mental health. And if you look at the DSM when it was first created, there was only a handful of diagnoses. And then now there's like over hundreds of diagnoses. And I think one of the most dangerous things that we can do in the mental health industry, and you know, is label, is diagnose people. And not only do we diagnose people, but we get them to own that diagnosis. So when kids are coming in and they're like, you know, I am anxious. Like, I don't say I am cancer. You know, I'm an experienced journey with cancer, but I don't say I am cancer or I am depressed. And once we start owning that belief system is very powerful. Is it working for them or is it working against them? And you know, and just to kind of put it in perspective, I mean, there were studies done, even in the cancer world, studies done where people were told that that they had cancer. They were given a prognosis of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you know, a year, and they passed on those dates only to find out they didn't even have cancer. But that is the power of belief. That's the power of belief. Joe Dispenza, he was a back surgeon. He was a surgeon. Broke his back in 3 different places. And, so he called his buddy, 3 different buddies, and they gave him the textbook answer, because it's like when you go through school, the programming runs so deep. So it's all memorization. So they gave him, I'm just going to lift the spine up off the nerves. I'm going to fuse the spine together and hopefully you'll be able to walk again. And the 3 people said the exact same thing. So he was like, intuitively, that doesn't feel right. Let me go home and rest. And he rested. He meditated like all day, every day for like 2 months. And he was doing the surgery in his mind, just in his mind. And he was able to repair his back and he walked again without any surgery. Power of belief. So here we are in this position of power, the experts in a position of power, getting kids, getting teens to own their diagnosis. Extremely dangerous in my personal opinion. And then, parents would be coming going, please medicate my children, and it's like, we weren't really working with the parents. We weren't talking about diet. We weren't talking about, their exposure to sun. How much water were they drinking? Were they eating whole foods? How many foods were they having a day?
Yep.
What's their connection to nature? Are they exercising every day? All we were doing was prescribing medication. And the stats are insane. Like the kids that were diagnosed, I think from, 0 to 12 kids were diagnosed and that were medicated. Many of them were given other prescriptions without another diagnosis. I think like 85% of them were given more additional medication by the time they were teenagers without any other diagnosis. So the stats are just, they're crazy. They're crazy. Yeah. Are we really getting to the root cause, or are we creating repeat customers? And when we start getting people to own this, it's very dangerous. Like we want to really take time to get to the root cause. So my values no longer aligned with what I was working with. And, that was that was taking a toll on me mentally, emotionally, and physically. Whatever we don't feel emotionally, we're going to feel physically. And I was feeling consistently, my body was like screaming, it's on another path. And I'm like, let me just stick it out a little bit longer, until, eventually I was diagnosed. But yeah, it was tough. Like I remember at one point there was rooms and every kid was in their own room and they were in there for like by themselves, isolated by themselves for majority of the day. And one little girl came to the door and I went to go talk with her and I was laughing with her and I got reprimanded for laughing with her. And they were like, she's seeking attention. I'm like, she's a child,
Wow.
it's, there's, I mean, to me, when we were in school, we were taught about institutional abuse and we were given examples of other countries,
Yeah.
I started working in the industry. I'm like, this is institutional abuse. And, but it's seen as normal, this
totally.
This is normal. So I did not agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, mine was, I mean, I align with a lot of it, but mine was more focused on still to this day in the school board, mostly for me, is why we still haven't discovered that teaching mental health is so important, right? Like the after effects of like waiting for something to happen and then we're reactive, as opposed to the proactive, real approach of just talking about these things that we all need to know how to cope, how to deal with stress, all of those things. Why are we still not teaching people how to do that? Like, I get math, science, and the importance of all those things, sure. But I mean, there should be a course somewhere in there teaching kids, how to manage, with their lives, adults need it. So why are we not still figuring out how to do that, right? Like how to make it a part of the curriculum so that they're not so lost in the world and then need the medication to band-aid the effects, or you know what I mean, as opposed to just like you're saying, try to teach it, right? I don't know. It's just backwards to me.
No, it is. It's inverted, and it's inverted for a reason. Like a lot of it's inverted. Like our mental health system, our school system, our medical system, which is sick care system, like many of it is, inverted. And it's tough to see that. I remember the first time I saw that and I was angry, like learning about this. And that's not to say that there's not beautiful souls working in those industries.
Of course.
Like they're in it for the right reasons, the same way. Like I was super excited. You were super excited to get into that. And then you start to see like even this week, my son got in trouble because he got out of his chair during lunchtime. And there's no supervision, but you have to sit in your chair to eat your lunch and you're not allowed to get up. And if it was a first warning, but the punishment for getting out of your chair, or punishment period for the classroom, and usually it's for the boys, is that you lose your recess. And I'm like, that's so counterintuitive. If the boys have high energy, why are you going to take away the one thing that they can, get rid of that energy in a healthy way? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I also worked in the school board, and, it's funny, when I was homeschooling my kids, like I saw how different, like I would wake up and I would have like a plan in my head, like, okay, we're going to do, whatever, this, and this today. And then they wake up and they're so tired. Like they're so tired.
Yeah.
And okay, forget that. We're not doing any paperwork today. Let's go for a nature walk. Let's go out. And then now we're like finding things in nature. Like we can, like we've been programmed to think for us to learn, it's like a teacher at the front, all the tables are facing, we're all sitting down under fluorescent lighting, and sitting down, staying still the whole time. And kids aren't adults. Adults can barely day,
Yes.
And to be able to move and interact and walk around and have classroom outdoors, or, and then it should be going on the flow depending on their energy levels. Like if it's high, then get outside and
Totally. Totally.
Totally. It here for the teacher.
Yeah. And you just brought me back. I remember one of my first placements ever in a school. It was part of my job to like the kids all ate in the gym on the floor, sitting in rows, and they were not allowed to talk during their lunch. And I remember like crying, being like, I cannot do this. Like it's their one time to be social. Like it's their one time to interact, to have, form their relationships with each other. And like the rest of the time they have to be quiet except for their lunchtime. And I was like, I can't do this. Like I left. And I mean, I felt like I almost should have reported it, but I'm like, I don't even know. It probably wouldn't have done anything. But I just remember feeling like, this is not okay. Like they need their time to, be people and have interactions with each other. And, and those things are just as important as all the other things that we're learning. Because think about how important our relationships are to us, right? Like, and that's when they're forming those bonds and that's when they're meeting people. And I just remember thinking that this is what I'm gotten into. I am way over my head. And I spent many years trying to change it. And like you said, it doesn't work. And you sort of get reprimanded and treated like, I was never going to move up at anywhere because my mouth was way too big. So no one was ever going to move me up anywhere. I was going to stay at the bottom of the pile because I was too opinionated. And that to me, should be celebrated, right? Like we teach kids to speak their mind, to have a voice, to all these things. And then you get into this adult world and you're like, all of a sudden my voice doesn't matter. And I'm not supposed to say anything. And I'm just supposed to, shut up and do my job. So it's very, I think all of that sort of links into that feeling of like, I was like, I was waking up with anxiety attacks every day before I went to work because I was so unhappy with who I was becoming, I think, in that environment. And I needed to make a change for sure. So yeah, I love that we sort of started in the same world and we've evolved into places where we're feel so much better about what we're doing and the work we're doing. And I don't know, we always had that bond that we knew, I think deep down inside that we were meant for something bigger and greater. And
yes.
Yeah.
And our hearts are in the right place. Like it is about like, educating and protecting the children as well. And in that environment, like the system's doing what it's meant to be doing,
Right.
and that's not something that we can come in and change. So it's like, okay, so either that system has to crumble or we create our own, system.
Yeah.
Side.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in school, I mean, we're not taught self-care, we're not taught even just like how to heal. Like, why do we get sick? How to heal, how to take care of ourselves. And especially like during COVID, like I was like, man, I really wish I could sew. I really wish that, like that I could.
Yeah.
There's so many skills where I'm like, dang, I wish I wish they taught us this in school. I mean, even something as simple as like, taxes and things like that. I mean, all these like basic things that I think would be like fantastic for us to learn in school, but self-care is one of them. And, even like my kids are like 9 and 8 and they're like, oh mama, like, we've got 5 senses, and then they're saying like sight, hearing. I'm like, actually we've got 6 senses, we've got our and like teaching that as well. But even that, I feel very strongly that we should be taught that in school. And we're taught that we shouldn't be like that when it doesn't even exist, like that it's woo woo or, not even to kind of tune in or enhance it. But, and, it's like, oh, I've got to go pee. Can I go pee? Like, nope, you're good. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I don't have to go pee. Or you're eating, your food and you're like, I'm so full. Like, no, you're not. Keep eating. Like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not full.
Right.
To kind of turn away from our body and then we give our power away to the experts. But I think if we really want to start reclaiming our power in a lot of these systems, like whether it's mental health, medical, school, any of that, we've got to tune in and really kind of trust our intuition and guide us.
It's so funny when you said the thing about the washroom, it triggered. My mom always used to say, if a teacher tells you ask to go to the washroom and they say no and you got to go, you get up and you walk out of that classroom and I will be on your side because if you got to go, you got to go. And no one should be telling you when you can go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like really. So I love her for that. And I think that was a great lesson and you just brought me back to that. So I love that.
Yeah, well, I was saying to my son too, like I was saying, I'm like, if the teacher ever tries to keep you inside on recess, like you let me know and I will let her know, like that is not okay. If she wants to give extra work, no problem. Like we can
Sure.
compromise on like the punishment, no problem. But taking away recess, like absolutely not. Like you're not
No,
taking the only
absolutely
chance
not.
to get fresh air.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I love that. Yeah, so kitties are good. They're doing
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, it's like speaking of intuition, like I mean, they practice intuition daily, like
Yeah, I love that. And that's something that I've grown to understand more and more in myself, to trust that intuition. And I know that that's become stronger and stronger for me, and that I love so much. So I'm just gonna keep going on that journey too, because you trust that voice that, so many times you're told to not listen to in so many ways. And the more you listen to it, I swear, like the happier you get, because it's just so.
yeah. I think it's important for people to like the intuition is a muscle, and it's something that needs to be flexed. Um,
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we think it's intuition, it's really fear talking. So like, I think it's important to practice, our intuition. So like anytime that I'm working with clients, like I'm always getting them like different exercises to do to practice their intuition. Do you want me
Yeah. I do. I really do. Yeah.
to?
Teach me one.
Okay. So like, I mean, one thing, this is something like that's super easy. Like I get my kids to do this, as well. But I mean, one thing you could do is like pick three. So you could do like pen, calculator, rock, pick
Okay.
three. And then, in my mind, I'm going to be thinking one of the items. And then you close your eyes and you can, kind of get grounded, take a few deep breaths. And as you kind of like breathe in, and then you can breathe in a few times just to kind of ground yourself. And then on the fourth exhale, just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Calculator. No, shut up. Do you know that came to my mind even before I took the breaths? Like it was like instant.
Amazing. Yeah.
It was instant. No, I love that.
Right? So like these like they're super fun that you can do. Another one is that you can do like write yes and no on a piece of paper. And then you fold it up, you mix it up so you don't know which one's which. And then you can say like, is my first name Charlotte? And then you kind of breathe into it. And then, and then notice that, ask yourself the same question, pick up the other piece of paper. Is my name, my first name Charlotte? And then you'll start to kind of just witness the energy, like where your attention goes, energy flows. You'll start to like, sometimes for me, if it's a yes, I can like pull the energy like all the way up to the top of my head. And, like, through the head. And then I know that one's the answer. And if it's not, it kind of gets stuck like around my stomach or my heart. But I practice with things that I know first. So when I'm doing like bigger decisions, then it can come through clear. Like,
I love that.
Yeah, like it's crazy. I mean, even like I just finished a 7-day water fast and, oh man, it was so hard.
So no water?
No food.
No food. Sorry, only water. I was like, okay, no, okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, so water fast. Got it. Yeah.
And I worked my way up. It's not like I just woke up and going, I'm not going to eat. Like, and the reason why it was like after 3 days, your body goes into autophagy. So then and all of a sudden it starts eating all the damaged cells. So, right. So, so, it is a great way to do it. But you want to make sure that you're, work your way up at a 24-hour fast, and you want to make sure you're drinking water, filtered water with electrolytes and all of that. But anyways, I mean, it was mentally hard, emotionally, physically, still cooking for kids, still smelling the food.
Oh, man.
Husband turned into a baker. I was like, are you kidding me?
Good timing. Good timing.
Yeah. Like you guys need to leave.
Yeah.
But anyways, one time I was meditating, and when you meditate, I don't know if it's because you're so weak or whatever it is, I was like in the zone very clearly. And I had lots of body pains and aches. And we have this like innate wisdom within us that we can tap into, but we've got to like quiet the outside world and kind of tune in. And when I did that, I was like, well, why do I have pain in my bones right now? And when you have cancer, I mean, like fear can pop up very quickly. And it's really important to kind of build that belief and, study survivors and study, whatever it is, like whatever you're trying to heal. People that have done it, you want to do it, Yeah.
And I love your touch upon like a few times over this of fear, because I really feel like it's a killer, and in so many ways, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. If we're fearing everything, we're not taking action, we're not doing anything about it, we're just kind of stuck in a sense. And that is like the message that I feel like I want to send all the time too, is just like the more you're afraid to step outside that comfort zone, to step outside anything, you're just holding yourself hostage, really, in a sense, right? So getting away from those thoughts all the time and it can be very hard to change, but I think it's so powerful once you can figure out how to, stop being afraid of everything and taking chances.
Yes. And like according to like the levels of consciousness, when you're experiencing fear, what you will experience in your life is inaction. Like you will not take any action when you're in a state of fear. And that 100% pops up in me. Like, I mean, I've been on this healing journey, natural healing journey now for a year and a half, and I've healed so many things within my body. Like cancer is a systemic issue. It's not just the tumor. So many things have healed within my body.
Right.
And fear still pops up, like paralyzing fear. And when it does, I turn into my own parent, immediately turn into my own parent. And I'm like, I slept. And I'm like, well, I've been sleeping pretty good. Okay. Have you been drinking water? No, my water's good. Okay. Have you been eating well? Well, I did eat out at the restaurant the other night. Okay. Let's get back on track with like meal prepping and eating well. Have you moved your body? I've gone 2 days without exercising. Okay, girl, exercise. That's like Mother Nature's anxiety antidepressant. Like get on it. Connected with nature. So right away I turn into my own parent and I'm going through the basics, like those basic needs. And then I'm also like, you can't just go like, okay, everything's going to be fine. Like then I'm lying to myself. Right. So I have to acknowledge the fear and I'm writing down all the fear. Even last night, like I went to bed and fearful thoughts were popping up and I had like what little bit of like nightmare. It wasn't nightmares, but little like fears, like little short stories of fear that I'm still holding on. So this morning, like journaling all of those things, I'm like, okay, acknowledge it. Cause the moment we acknowledge that fear, it already loses its power just by acknowledging it, just by like getting it out on paper.
Yes.
And then once we have that courage, like to take action, we step into courage. Now we're moving into like happiness and productivity because we're like, we feel good. We're like, oh man, I feel good. Even though I did not want to like walk in nature today and I did it. I feel good. And then you could like, and then other insights can come from that. But
totally.
Yeah, we have to face our fear. We cannot be living in the light and pretending that like everything's fine, It's like you acknowledge. Yeah.
And the more the fear goes away, the bigger the dreamer comes. And that's what I love. Like living in those, just the power of like what could be and like where you want to go in life and all of those things. I think I don't know, it's just just comes out more when you're not like you said, like reaching that level of courage instead of fear.
Yes. And when you plug into that consistently, like when you start like recognizing your patterns, what's working, what's not, and it's not like what's good or what's bad. It's like what's working, what's not working. This works, this doesn't work. And once you start doing it, like your hope turns into like belief, like, well, maybe I will be okay. Maybe I can heal this. Maybe I don't need to put myself in a box or own whatever the diagnosis they've given me. And maybe this, like, maybe I can do this. And all of a sudden, like your hope turns into belief and then your belief turns into knowing. I know I can heal this on my own. I know I don't need to own this, and that's where the magic starts happening. When you start owning like every cell of your being, it's like, woohoo, like that's where miracles happen.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like that's a perfect place to like end this because it's just like on like such a perfect high note. But I thank you so much for doing this today. And I really love all of your messaging always, because you're just such a powerful soul that has so much good to offer this world. So I just love that you can share all that and sit and trust me comfortably to sit here and talk about it. I love that so much. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this today.
Thank you so much for having me on. Love you lots. And
love you too.
I can't wait to watch more of your episodes because you're doing amazing work here.
So thank you so much. This is the wrap on episode 2, and I am so happy. And keep it coming, guys. If you feel like you want to join, if there's any calling to you that you feel like you want to tell your story, please reach out, because this is just going to keep going.